What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Schreckbein, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk or subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they've had a day. It seems like it's just beginning. No, they did not go out there and release anybody. A quarterback has not been signed as of the start of this podcast. However, the NFL is rolling. The train is moving, and everything that we're hearing is that there is much more to come. We're diving into Davante Adams' release, another name at wide receiver that the Pittsburgh Steelers are interested in, according to sources. A corner that may replace a name that I think a lot of people, a lot of fans were hoping got another shot in the city of Pittsburgh. And we are finishing it off with the return of Overreaction Tuesday. Free agency is back. The NFL season is pretty much here. And, well, it's time to see if we can overreact to it. It's a beautiful one here in the city of Pittsburgh. Got to be 70 degrees outside. I've spent almost all day long either recording a podcast or outside getting some sunshine. Shout out to everybody who checked out our All NFL Talk episode. I guess, Nick, we should make the official announcement now, guys. And I don't mean to take up so much time here at the beginning of this, but me and Nick did launch a new podcast as of today called All NFL Talk. It is on our other YouTube channel, youtube.com/All NFL Talk, where we will dive into the biggest topics of the National Football League every single Tuesday. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Nick, I hope it's just as nice down south. How you feeling, my friend?
Oh, it is absolutely gorgeous out here. So I'm excited because tonight that means we're going to get some barbecue and really enjoy the nice weather in DC. But no, it's great time to be a football fan because speculation season is coming to an end. The season of actual hard news is coming. We got Saquon, we got Darius Slay, we got people getting cut, people getting signed left and right, and it's only a matter of time until the Pittsburgh Steelers throw their hat in the ring and get started on this offseason.
Yes, it's the beginning of chaos, although chaos has been inevitable for so long in the grand scheme of things, but now it just calms. The chaos brings calm to the NFL season right now because it's just all over the place. You've no idea what's going to happen. It's super hectic. Everybody is talking about every single direction, and we are about to find out what's actually going to happen with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Days away. I would imagine a quarterback gets signed one way or another. I'll say that before next Tuesday. Not 100% that they know exactly who that's going to be, but I'll say this. We have held strong to Justin Fields. We were the first ones to report the Justin Fields thing, and I don't like taking victory laps. I think we all, have some wins in this industry. I'm thankful that our win was most likely the quarterback, but we've held strong to Justin Fields the entire time because the Pittsburgh Steelers are holding strong to Justin Fields the entire time, and there is a pretty strong belief he's going to sign, but it comes down to money because this is a business, and, well, the Steelers and Justin Fields, they got to agree on those dollar signs before anything else happens. Meanwhile, they will be looking at wide receiver, and they need a quarterback before wide receiver, but there are some available, and they have already started their scouting process, and they do have interest in a couple of names. Today, Davante Adams was released from the New York Jets, a name we have talked about a number of times, a name that at some points this offseason we've spoken of a trade that was never going to happen for $38.1 million or whatever the number was. It might happen in free agency. I don't think it's the most far-fetched thing the Pittsburgh Steelers could have surrounding them right now. He's a veteran who is super reliable. You could say, yeah, he's 32 years old, but he had 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns last season with a bad Aaron Rodgers. And before that, it was Gardner Minshew, not the guy that you want throwing you footballs as a future Hall of Fame wide receiver. Could be a name that the Pittsburgh Steelers did consider the Pittsburgh Steelers back at the trade deadline or just before the trade deadline when the Steelers were looking for a wideout, but Davante Adams obviously wanted to go with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is on the table for the Steelers currently where we sit here now. That could change. A lot could change in a week. But if it's Justin Fields, does Davante Adams make sense for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
I mean, I'm glad you prefaced it with if it's Justin Fields, because I think that Davante Adams already showed his hand when it came to the Pittsburgh Steelers, saying you need to pick a quarterback before I even consider coming over to the Steelers. They picked the wrong one during the season, and because of that, Davante Adams decided he wanted to reunite with Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets. So again, I think that this is obviously something they're going to look into, especially when you look at the market value from Spotrac. If it comes in at that $13.7 million, it makes a lot of sense. You're not paying anybody else on the offensive side of the football. And Davante Adams represents a massive, and I cannot underscore this enough, a massive upgrade on what you had at the wide receiver 2 position last year. So if he's available and if he's coming for that money, it makes all the sense in the world on the Steelers side of things. On Davante's side of things, again, it all comes down to the quarterback. Who is it and when does he sign? Because how patient is Davante Adams going to be with this process?
I agree. I agree. It does come down to the quarterback. Do you think that he'd be willing to play with Justin Fields?
I would think so. I think that he knows that his options aren't going to be somewhat limited when it comes to the free agency market, because he's going to value himself as a number 2 at the very least. And a lot of these teams aren't going to. Like the Steelers have a clear need at number 2, but some other teams might not look at Davante Adams at that age and say, yeah, you're going to be a number 2. No, they're going to say, yeah, you're going to be a great veteran number 3. And if they do, I think it's a shame on them. But I do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers offer enough opportunity to where it's going to get Davante's attention.
I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if the Steelers approached Davante with some sort of offer. I don't think that offer is going to be very high, but it wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't look at it and go, oh, the Steelers, they messed up. No, I'd look at it and say, Davante Adams is a really reliable wide receiver, one with a ton of talent left. And I don't care. I'll ride that train, that bus, whatever, till the wheels fall right off with Davante Adams, because that's how good of a wide receiver he is. And that's what you would, honestly, that's what you would like in a guy for Justin Fields. You want reliable guys. Like Cooper Kupp is not a crazy idea because he's a reliable set of hands. You can overlook the injuries and the price tag to say, this is a guy that Justin Fields will be able to look at and say, I have somebody here that I could count on. That is Davante Adams. And quite frankly, it's a lot better in Davante Adams. I will say this name, or we'll toss this name out there, because last night, which is wild that my report came out an hour before reports from SYN or SNY, whatever, SNY came out on the same thing, which only confirms that, well, this is probably true, that the Pittsburgh Steelers, according to sources, they have some interest in Darius Slayton, and he is certainly a name to watch for the black and gold during free agency. Wouldn't be surprised if they moved fast to try and get Darius Slayton. They view him pretty high on the list, and that list is, well, not the longest. He's 28 years old. He comes off his worst season as a professional football player, but he played with Drew Lock, Daniel Jones with no confidence, and Tommy DeVito, who had one arm by the time this was all said and done, and probably one less rib from all the sacks he was taking. Still a very reliable guy who's a former 4th-round pick, I think, 5th-round pick out of Auburn, who's made a name for himself in the NFL. He's never had a 1,000-yard season. I think you could get him for under $20 million. I think his value right now on Spotrac is 15 point something. That's a good number to me. If you could sign him for a 2, maybe a 3-year deal, and I'd be very comfortable with the 3-year deal with Darius Slayton, keep him until he's 31 years old and then decide to move on from him or move on a year early. I'm sure that they can structure a contract to make it worth their while in the back half if he is still, or if he is not still performing at the same level that they need him to. Darius Slayton, to me, I mean, I'm not alone. You've said this. Pretty much everybody in the chat has said this. We have said this a number of times. Everybody said this a number of times. Darius Slayton makes a lot of sense for the Steelers. He is a young guy. He's still got plenty of football left in him. He's reliable. He's a playmaker. Like, that's the thing. In New York, he was a playmaker. People were comparing him as a guy that would fit perfectly next to George Pickens because they can both do so much as wide receivers. I think it works a lot. I will say this, though. Okay? I'm going to ask you Darius Slayton, but it did open my eyes that he's 28 years old. I looked at him as considerably younger than Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is 29. Like, to me, that's still a pretty young wide receiver. I get it. Maybe Darius Slayton is a little bit older. Maybe, everybody that you think is young is getting older. But to me, I was like, oh, Darius Slayton's still a young gun. This dude's still prime football, which he is. But I was like, Chris Godwin's got to be 30, pushing 31. No, he's just turned 29 years old. To me, that's young. Still, Darius Slayton's the name that I think is on the top of the Steelers list or very close to it because they aren't going to get T. Higgins. I don't think Davante Adams would be first on their list. If anything, he might be second or third. But Darius Slayton feels like a very cheap option for the Steelers. I'd ink him to a 3-year deal, and I'd be very comfortable with that. I told you about this earlier this morning, but your reaction now.
Yeah, it's much more in the realm of possibility than a guy like Davante Adams. We had those links in the 2024 season, but at the end of the day, the Steelers don't typically make the home run signing. They typically look to get that second tier, maybe top of the second tier, and I think that's exactly what Darius Slayton represents. I mean, yeah, it feels like he's been in the league a lot longer than he has, but simply probably because any skill player that's playing for the New York Giants probably ages in dog years, or it feels like they're there forever. But
yes,
no, again, Slayton is a player that we've talked about before. He's a guy that fits what the Steelers need. He is a bona fide number 2 wide receiver, and he's not somebody that's going to take away, spotlight from George Pickens, which is going to allow Pickens to go out there and be what he wants to be, which is the bona fide number 1, while at the same time, Slayton's able to kind of take some of that attention away because he can get open. So it feels like that is a match made in heaven again for the Steelers. But the problem with all these wide receivers that we talk about is they're free agents. And what have I said multiple times this offseason? How attractive is it to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers right now? Because you don't have the Super Bowl upside that was once here. You do have the Mike Tomlin of it all, which still carries weight in the free agency market. But it all comes down to dollars and opportunity. If the Steelers can offer enough money and enough opportunity, Slayton might want to come to Pittsburgh because he is not the number 1 guy on the market. It is going to be Adams, viewed by most people nationwide. It is going to be Chris Godwin, viewed by most people nationwide. And because of his time in New York, I think there's a lot of people that are kind of down on Darius Slayton, but at the same time, he's still only 28. And the Steelers need that veteran piece. This would be a nice piece that could not only bring that presence, but still be able to bring a high level of play with it.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I think the Steelers are still pretty. They're not going to give you the money to go get Chris Godwin. They're not going to give you the money to go make a crazy splash for T. Higgins if he was available. They wouldn't have the funds. They wouldn't make the funds available for something like that. But at the same time, like, I think a Darius Slayton fits perfectly once you ink a quarterback because. Like, Darius Slayton, who doesn't want to come play for the Pittsburgh Steelers? The Pittsburgh Steelers might not be like what they were, but it's in the NFL world. I've never once heard a player say, I don't want to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Never once. They still hold like crazy weight. And especially compared to, like, I understand that teams like the Jets look super fancy right now, and teams like the Raiders look fancy once they get a quarterback. And there's all those types of teams. But if you're not a contender, the Steelers still reign superior over most of those teams, even as a team that from the outside looking in, we could very much tell they are not going to win a Super Bowl in 2025 unless something crazy happens and everything switches, which never say never, but not likely. I would still say Darius Slayton fits in that tier where it's like the Steelers are calling. That's very interesting because he's come from a place that has been a disaster for years. And now he's going like the Steelers are stability. They're not great, but they're stability. You're going to win. Dante Jackson said to me a million times this past season, man, it feels good to be on a winning team. And I think there are people out there who are just looking at it going, the Steelers don't even know how good you're telling me I get to win 10 games a year? Yeah. That sounds awesome to me. That sounds way better than Tommy DeVito throwing me the football while Evan Neal gets beat for the 11th time in a half against whoever, because it happens to every single team. I think Slayton's a good middle ground tier for the Steelers in a way that could work out in their favor when it comes to pulling him in. But, I did not hear that the Steelers are locked in on this guy. I just heard that the Steelers are interested in Darius Slayton and that they are doing their homework on him to make sure that he could be the guy if they choose to go that route. I'm sure we'll hear more in the next couple of days, but we're going to hear more about everybody. We're going to hear more about corners and wide receivers and quarterbacks and defensive tackles and moves that the Steelers are going to make that will be releasing guys that I expect to happen before next Tuesday as well. The chaos is just getting started, it's been a fun day on Twitter, and I feel like that's how you know that we're almost back, that we are here. All right, let's talk the other side of the football here. According to our friend over at Penn Live, Nick Fairbaugh, the Pittsburgh Steelers have interest in a number of names: DJ Reed, Tre'Davious Ward, Byron Murphy, which I think surprised me. But the one that did not surprise me at cornerback is Nate Hobbs out of Las Vegas. The former Raider is set to be a free agent for the first time in his career. He's still young. He's like 25 years old. He's coming off a season where he started 7 games, I believe. He is a slot guy. Comes up with like an interception a year, couple of sacks. Like, that's what you're looking for if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, is just somebody reliable and young that you can develop. Stop plugging pieces in there that only work for a year or two or for 6 or 7 games in Beanie Bishop's case, and go get somebody who's young. Nate Hobbs was a name that was all over the combine. Everybody was talking about Nate Hobbs as a landing spot or a guy who could land in Pittsburgh, that the Steelers obviously have interest in him, that he played with Gerald Alexander, who's the new defensive backs coach for the Steelers. Physical guy, good in coverage, their best option in the last couple of years to fill that role. He's a slot corner, so he's not going to be expensive. Plus, he's cheap and doesn't start every game, so he's less expensive. In a crowded cornerback room, he's probably looked at even cheaper because guys are going to look at DJ Reed and Ward and Murphy, and somebody else just got released, the Darius Slay, who got released yesterday, and look at those guys and say, I'd pay more for them than I would Nate Hobbs. Nate Hobbs' value is probably not super high, but he comes in here as a starter. I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think Beanie Bishop is viewed as a guy who is on the roster in 2025. I think that he's a guy that has an opportunity to get onto the roster in 2025. I think the Steelers would very much so like Beanie Bishop to be on the roster in 2025 and develop into something. I think they hope Beanie Bishop comes in here and knocks the socks off everybody and is the dude for the Steelers next to Joey Porter Jr., who could play on the inside. But I don't think they were sold by him last year. I do think that his benching had just as much to do with him as it did wanting Cam Sutton out there. And I do feel the Steelers are going to try to replace him. And personally, Nate Hobbs is the best answer there. They're going to go after corner and free agency. I'd much rather an all-veteran cornerback room than a couple of mid-round rookies playing slot and the outside next to Joey Porter Jr. I'm all about Nate Hobbs. Like, I am. I think the Steelers are going to kind of bring in another veteran piece for the secondary in a guy that we don't really know a bunch about. I view it as maybe I'm just in the honeymoon phase with Deshaun Elliott or something, but I view it as a potential. This could work out really well for the Steelers. Nate Hobbs is a name that, again, we've mentioned before. Interest is becoming real. We're getting very close to these things happening. Your thoughts on Nate Hobbs?
My thoughts on Nate Hobbs are not as prominent right now as my thoughts on Beanie Bishop, because I just don't understand the lack of patience with a guy in Beanie Bishop. I thought that he, yes, looked every bit an undrafted rookie early in that season last year, but I didn't think that he played himself off of the field. I understand that he struggled in some points, but he also made some big plays in certain games early in that season. It was very interesting to me that he wasn't able to play himself back onto the field, but that's okay, because I think even if you bring in Nate Hobbs, Beanie Bishop is a guy that had to earn everything he got. He wasn't expected to make the 53-man roster going into the season last year. Not only did he do that, but he became the opening day starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers at the slot corner position. I just don't understand the lack of patience that they have at that position. Now, it might just be because it's that position and the nature of it is such that if you can't play outside as well, then you're kind of on an island there, and it's either sink or swim. And he didn't necessarily swim like Michael Phelps when he was out there. So you can kind of look at it and say maybe that they need to replace that. But I don't understand the lack of patience with a Beanie Bishop. I like Nate Hobbs. If they bring in Nate Hobbs, that's a good option there. But I feel like in an offseason where you have a lot of holes to fill, bringing in Nate Hobbs to replace Beanie Bishop feels like something that is a nominal addition that takes away more money than it should.
Okay. I don't think Beanie, in my eyes, sits in the tier of played well enough that I want to see what comes about it. I mean, I thought he played fine, but I also thought he got really lucky a couple of times. And like, the Garrett Wilson interception was fantastic. The one-handed one. The one where it bounces off of his head should have been a touchdown for the Jets. And then he's great and a reaction piece. I think this is just all like the position itself. If this was outside and it was Corey Trice we're talking about, you let that guy develop. That sounds great. But how much like ground, how stable is the slot corner position? Not very stable. It's a big rotational piece within a defense. Here's my other point when it comes to Nate Hobbs, depending on what it costs, but what do you expect? I expect Nate Hobbs to go for $5 million, a season, $6 million, something like that. How old is Beanie Bishop? Can you look up how old Beanie Bishop is? Because I'm almost sure that he's 24 years old and that Nate Hobbs is 25. And I get it. $5 million is $5 million, but $5 million for a pretty okay upgrade is probably okay. You could probably make that stance.
They're both 25 years old.
Yeah. Like it's in my eyes, it's still a young guy that you're getting plenty of career out of. You're not taking a step again. Like if this was Dante Jackson to cut Corey Trice, I think Corey Trice should be a backup, but to cut Corey Trice, I would be against it totally. Don't do it. It's not develop your guy. Beanie is, again, 25 years old, an undrafted guy. Hobbs is a proven NFL vet and costs, $4 million more a season, which is a lot of money. It's not that much money when the Steelers don't have like a bad cap situation. Their cap situations, they're going to sign a quarterback, a wide receiver, and probably 2 corners and still be pretty okay. They're going to be, they're not in a spot where they're struggling. And because of that, I'm okay with it. I don't want Beanie off the roster though. I do agree with you on that one. I very much so agree with you on that one. I do not want Beanie gone. I want Beanie to be here, to be a piece, teach him how to play special teams, let him contribute at safety. I don't care. I like Beanie over guys like Ryan Watts. I like Beanie over guys like James Pierre. I like Beanie as an option to come in here, find a spot for him, see what he could work or become in the next year. You give him one more year to really branch out and make some noise out there. But again, like coaches know more than we do sometimes, and it's crazy. But that being said, the coach that decided to bench him, the coach that gave up on him, at least his position coach, is no longer here. So maybe Gerald Alexander could pull something else out. Do you think the other side of this report were all those big names, DJ Reed, Byron Murphy, Charvarius Ward, the likelihood that actually happens?
Very small. Very, very small. I mean, you mentioned that the Steelers do have a decent salary cap situation, but they also have a lot of money invested on the defensive side of the football. And I think they're aware of it right now. I think they're very aware of it after watching what happened late last season, that they don't have enough invested in the offensive side of the ball. And those guys are going to cost a pretty penny here in the next week.
Yeah, you could probably sign Dante Jackson and Nate Hobbs for like $4 million less than what you're going to sign any of those guys for, which is just too much money. Like, you're good. Dante Jackson's a starter on most teams that need a corner. just go get Dante Jackson, draft somebody, or hope that Corey Trice, don't let Corey Trice play in training camp. Don't let him touch the field. Put him in a bubble until you absolutely need him in the third quarter of week 11 when Dante Jackson's back starts to give out. Like when that happens, Corey Trice is allowed to come onto the field. Until then, he does nothing. That's how I would handle the situation. All right, let's do it. I'm excited for it. It's Tuesday. We're back. It's been a while. It's been since at the end of the season. I'm pretty sure we did one right after the playoff loss to the Baltimore Ravens. Took a little bit of a break. Now we're back. NFL free agency starts 1 week tomorrow. We will have one more overreaction before it starts. Chances are there's a quarterback in Pittsburgh before we do the next Overreaction Tuesday. But we're here. We're back. We're excited for it. Let's get it kicking.
It's a fine line between, drinking wine and squashing grapes, as we say in this business. And sometimes it's very subtle.
We are live. I'm excited. Let's dive into it. Nick, what do we got?
Let's go to one that I've seen on the internet a lot today. Not one that I necessarily agree with, but one that has been out there a lot today.
Okay.
Darius Slay should be the Steelers' first call to fill their cornerback room.
No overreaction. First call. You know how many people I'm calling before I'm calling Darius Slay? At least one of them. And his name is Dante Jackson. Darius Slay would be awesome. He's looking for a contender. He's looking for the Detroit Lions. We said on All NFL Talk today that he might ruin the Steelers' season, to be honest with you, by going to a different AFC North team that is a contender. I don't think Darius Slay is number one on the Steelers list. Maybe number two, maybe number three, not number one. Dante Jackson is number one. I'm sorry. And this is in order of realistic contracts, okay? Should they call him? Is that what you said? They should call him first?
Because if they should call,
I still think that's an overreaction. DJ Reed, Byron Murphy, and Charvarius Ward should be their first calls. Young, big time options. Hey, what's the price tag? Okay, sounds good. Thanks for talking. See you later. Next call is Darius Slay. Hey, what's the price tag? Okay, sounds good. Thanks. And then the third one is Dante Jackson, which is probably the one you're going to sign. Maybe second phone call, but you're obviously going with the younger. Like if you're just testing the market, that's the thing. The Steelers are not going to ignore these guys. We could say they aren't going to sign them. If they don't call DJ Reed, that's come on. What are they doing? Omar's already on the phone. He's already had these conversations with these guys. Darius Slay's agent is probably going to get a phone call. It's going to be after the big names, obviously. This is an overreaction.
All right, let's go to two of mine, and I think you'll think they're both pretty good. First one, soon-to-be birthday boy Justin Fields and Davante Adams will sign on back-to-back days this weekend.
Davante Adams to the Steelers?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
Fields will sign, and Davante will say finally, and he'll sign.
That's an overreaction. That is an overreaction. Look, Davante Adams got a front row seat to the Justin Fields show in Vegas, and it was not that impressive. And I don't think he's going to be all gung-ho to jump back in there. I think he's waiting for his buddy Aaron Rodgers to pick a team and see what that team is. Now, if that team is the New York Giants, I don't know if it's like a definite, I'm going to go to the Giants. That sounds like a good time. The Steelers are calling me. I actually just got off the phone with Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson's trying to recruit me. But we're going to go to New York and play with 43-year-old Aaron Rodgers. I don't think that's going to happen. I could see the Saints are in cap hell. That's never going to happen. It's not the Steelers. I can tell you that much. It makes sense for the Steelers that he's not signing before Tuesday unless this turns into the most chaotic time of all time over the next 5 or 6 days. Justin Fields, maybe. Davante Adams, no. This is an overreaction.
I got another one for you here. The Steelers will not draft a wide receiver in the first 4 rounds of the 2025 NFL draft.
Look, as crazy as this sounds, the Steelers did not draft a wide receiver in the first 4 rounds of my latest mock draft, which is titled Steelers Plans, something like that. I don't remember what it's titled, but Steelers plans become clear. That's what it is. during the NFL Combine, which means I got a pretty good read on what's going on right now. And yeah, Emeka Egbuka and Matthew Golden were impressive. And I think Emeka Egbuka would be a steal at 21. I think Matthew Golden is working his way into the first round. But I truly believe it is going to be Kenneth Grant or Walter Nolan with the first pick. I think it's going to be a running back that they hope and pray is Travion Henderson. And then I think it's quarterback. And Quinn Ewers is the name that I had, and he's the name that, rumor has it, had really, really, really good interviews at the NFL Combine, impressed a lot of people. From there, I mean, it's pickings. You could go wherever you want. But I would guess in the middle of the draft, the Steelers are looking for Mason McCormick's competition. I would guess in the middle of the draft, the Steelers are looking for a second defensive tackle. I would guess in the middle of the draft, the Steelers might be looking for a corner. But I don't know if they're looking for another number 4 wide receiver. I don't think that's an overreaction. I think that is that's a very real possibility for the Pittsburgh Steelers to not draft quarterback. Maybe in this entire thing, but definitely in the top 4 rounds.
Let's go to Phillips' overreaction from earlier today. Said letting Fields and Wilson walk and signing Rodgers to a 1-year deal is best. Upside is a deep playoff run. Downside is finally not winning enough games to get a higher draft pick and a better quarterback in the draft next year.
Okay. The reasoning isn't terrible. It makes sense. Now, best option, I think there's an argument for it, but no, the answer is no. Justin Fields comes with some downside. So if you're looking for the positives of the negative, Justin Fields could stink. His team's had the number 1 pick in the draft before. It wouldn't be the first time that he has brought a team to the bottom 5 in the NFL. I don't think that's going to happen. I also don't think Mike Tomlin would let Aaron Rodgers ruin a season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think if any team is going to say Aaron Rodgers is going to win 9 games, I do not care. It is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I personally don't think the floor is lose enough games to have a top 5, 6, 7 pick. I think the floor I think you could put me and you back there and we'd still have a shot at 8 games. I really, truly believe that Mike Tomlin would do what needs to be done to put us back there. Aaron Rodgers, I get it. I understand it. Overreaction only because, I mean, if you're going to go with that logic, okay, upside is a deep playoff run. Downside is top 5 pick. Justin Fields could get you both of those things. And he's 25 years old. Russell Wilson could probably get you both of those things. I mean, that dude went 6-5 during his run with the Steelers. He was not on pace to have a winning record if he started the whole year. That wasn't going to happen. And I mean, if you're looking for the negatives and you just want to crash out, go sign Daniel Jones, man. That guy's upside is, hey, the Giants screwed up and this is the next Sam Darnold. And his downside is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL. So options are there. I think this one's an overreaction. Aaron Rodgers, I mean, maybe, but no.
You overestimate my decrepit right shoulder because I wouldn't be able to get 8 points, let alone 8 wins behind an NFL offense.
How far do you think you could throw an NFL football?
15 yards, maybe? I don't know. 20 yards, maybe, if I'm like really heaving it and stepping into it, like full on little league center field crow hop, might get it 25 yards.
I was sitting there with Caboli one day, our good friend of the show who's never been on the show, Mark Caboli, saying, how far can you throw this football? I said 25 yards. He said like 40. I said, dude, you're going to tear 4 ACLs, man. You're more than you have to tear. That's not going to be able to happen. But he was pretty confident. I said, dude, this thing's the size of my head. It's not, there's no chance. I got little hands. I got Kenny Pickett hands.
Throw it accurately. Like, yeah, I could probably drop back and like just heave it, but I'm not going to be able to hit a receiver that far downfield.
I could probably hit a receiver 25 yards, maybe 30 yards, and a floater. It's getting intercepted, but it's still getting intercepted. Some kid's going to run out of stands and pick it off, but I could probably do it. I don't know. Either way, Caboli, no chance, 40 yards.
Let's jump down to Walter, who says, overreaction. They will sign Russ for $40 million. I do not want this, by the way.
Yeah, that's an overreaction. I'm telling you, Russ's name has faded and faded fast in the Pittsburgh Steelers conversation. It is most certainly Justin Fields. And it's so Justin Fields to the point where, like, I was having a conversation with somebody and they said, are you feeling like good that you guys like put this out so early? And I was like, no, it's not across the finish line yet. Like, it can't, I'm not going to celebrate anything. And, this is my job. I'm like excited to bring this to you guys. And that's how confident people are starting to get in it being Justin Fields. So things can happen. Money is a massive thing in this conversation and remains much bigger than I think anybody is willing to admit right now. It is Justin Fields, but Justin Fields wants money. Everybody wants money. That's what the NFL runs off of. And if the Steelers aren't willing to give up that money, I bet you the Jets will. I bet you the Giants will. I bet you some other team will. And that's going to come into play. But yeah, no, it's not Russ, man. Like, I could tell you, the whole, like, everybody wants it to be Russ if it's not Justin in Pittsburgh. I think if Justin signed tomorrow to the Jets or to the Browns or to the wherever, it would be a wild turn of events with just a complete roller coaster ride ahead of us when it comes to the quarterback placement.
Let's go to Lindsay, who says Adams and Kupp will go to the Chiefs. The Steelers will start with the same receiving core, Van Jefferson at number 2 again. Is that an overreaction?
Yeah, Van Jefferson is not going to come back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think he really wants to, like, I don't think he was the biggest fan of how disliked he might have been amongst the receivers in Pittsburgh. I don't think that's going to happen. This one's a pretty easy overreaction. Kupp and Adams to the Chiefs could happen. The big thing here is the Rams are not going to trade Cooper Kupp to the Chiefs. They'll give him to a contender. They'll do him right. They're not going to give him to Kansas City. Like, that one's not going to. They're smart enough to know we want to win a Super Bowl. And if Cooper Kupp plays us in the Super Bowl, he will have 300 yards. And that's not something they're willing to do. So this one's an overreaction.
Let's go to Shower Curtain, who says, overreaction. The Steelers let a game-changing future Hall of Fame wide receiver slip right through in the draft for the usual defensive tackle.
I don't think that's the case unless you consider Matthew Golden to be that future Hall of Famer, which, everybody's opinion is valid until proven otherwise. And if that's how everybody considers him, cool. I don't consider Matthew Golden a future Hall. I think he's got a lot of upside. I also think a defensive tackle would be a better pick. Emeka Egbuka, I think, would trump most guys in the first round for the Steelers. I just don't think he's going to get to 21. So not an overreaction, I guess, but it depends on how you view Matthew Golden.
And let's finish off Overreaction Tuesday with Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, overreaction, a rookie drafted early would be better than Russell Wilson.
This is an overreaction. Look, if this was a draft class where you were taking somebody late in the first round that you were like, yeah, whatever. Like, you could go back. It's been a while since it's been Lamar. Lamar was the last end of the first round quarterback that was there that people were like, oh, maybe there's some good upside there. Since then there hasn't really been one. If this was Kenny Pickett, yeah, all right, cool. Yeah, definitely better than Russ. I don't see Jackson Dart being it. I don't see Quinn Ewers being it. I don't see Dylan Gabriel or Will Howard or any of these guys being better than Russ. So we'll go over reaction. I think for the long term, maybe, but if the Steelers drafted a quarterback at 21, you'd probably have good odds that quarterback is not the quarterback in 2 years and that somebody else is the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe Russell Wilson again. You never know. So I'm going overreaction.
That's a wrap for Overreaction Tuesday then.
Awesome. That was awesome, guys. Felt good to be back. Felt good to go get those overreactions out of the way, and we will have them again next week, which I am super excited about because it just means Pittsburgh, our football is back. We're here. We're ready. Give me some moves. Give me the chaos. My wife texted me today and said, hey, I'm going to have the family over next weekend, not this upcoming weekend, next weekend for a pasta night. Is that okay with you? And I said, my life will be chaos. But yes, pasta sounds delicious. Will I be there? We'll see what happens. I might be sitting right here talking to you guys about Justin Fields, Larry Ogunjobi, Davante Adams, Darius Slay. The list goes on and on and on, and there are many more to come. All right. With that said, we're going to finish off the show the same way we do every single day. We're going to answer all of your questions, so make sure you're tossing them in the chat. We'll get to all of them before we head out of here. Nick, what do we got?
Let's kick things off with Miguel, who says, please explain to me, like I'm 5, why people are high on George Pickens. 85 other receivers had more touchdowns with far less hassle last season. Great show, guys, as always.
Hey, appreciate you as always, Miguel. I think George Pickens has some of the best body control and could create some of the best catches in the NFL. I think he's had really bad quarterbacks his entire career. I think with a real quarterback and a good offensive system, he is a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. I will give him his flowers because he deserves them. He comes with all the hassle in the world. I don't think in Pittsburgh it makes sense to deal with that hassle simply because the Steelers are a running football team and they're going to remain a running football team, whether we want them to or not. That is not me saying they should be. It's me just saying this is what they are. Now, you put up with George Pickens' hassle if you could get it under control enough where it doesn't become an issue. But right now it's an issue. Right now, some players in that locker room don't really like it. And the coaches are constantly having to put out fires that they should not have to put out with a wide receiver. So I think the hype is there. The talent is certainly there. I think if you can replace them, you replace them. But I don't know if the Steelers are going to.
Let's jump to Chris, who says, hear me out, guys. If the Steelers need a franchise quarterback in the draft next year, we'll probably be too high to get one. Trading down this year will give us the draft capital to make these moves next.
Like I agree with that. Okay. I agree with that one. I do. My only argument against trading down in the NFL draft for next year's draft is if the Steelers get a quarterback, first off, the Steelers would have to be so atrocious next year to be in a spot, or they'd have to have 2 or 3 first-round picks, which I get. Possible. You can make that happen. Here's my argument. If you're giving up this year's draft and next year's draft for a quarterback, you don't have a first-round pick this year. You don't have a first-round, or your first-round pick next year is a quarterback. You're going to trade both firsts, and you're probably going to have to trade more unless one of those firsts ends up being a top 10 pick, which, you know, who you trading with to move down? Maybe somebody, maybe, but I don't know. Let's just say best case scenario is 2 first-round picks. You are giving up a first-round talent this year that you're going to surround that quarterback with, which means that you don't have a starting defensive tackle. You still don't have some wide receivers. You have more holes on the defensive line the offensive line that you have to fill. You need a corner. It just, like, to me, building a team to prepare for the quarterback works almost all the time. And trading up to get a quarterback works rarely. So in my eyes, it's just build the team, build the team. And if your team is phenomenal next year, okay, and you need to go get a quarterback, it's got to happen. Trade next year to go the year after that. But if Justin Fields works out, great. But in the meantime, build it. Build the castle for the king. That's how I view it. It works out more times than it doesn't.
Yeah, and if you want one example, the latest is the Carolina Panthers. They went out and they traded the world to get Bryce Young in there. We're 2 years in, and while Young looks a little bit better, there's still nobody around him and no belief that team is going to be able to do very much of anything in year 3 of this quarterback that they selected first overall. So it's tough to, as you mentioned, get the king and not have a castle to surround him with.
Exactly. You could go look at Kansas City and Philadelphia is different, but Kansas City's another one. Like they got Patrick Mahomes 10th overall, and they moved up to 10 to get him. Which if the Steelers can move up to 10 next year, they don't got to give up this pick. They give up next year's second, it'll be great. And if the quarterback class turns out to be that loaded, awesome. But they had the team in place. They had a playoff team ready for Patrick Mahomes. Now he's the best quarterback maybe of all time. So it's CJ Stroud, another example. They lucked into that one. The Steelers should take that approach.
Chris has another one here that says, sad that mediocrity is now the standard for Mike Tomlin.
That seems to be everybody's go-to right now. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks. I'm excited to get down to, it's not Orlando, Palm Beach, I think it is, this year in Florida at the owners' meetings in a couple of weeks to talk to Tomlin, to talk to Omar, talk to Rooney, and just kind of see where their head is after what should be an eventful week in free agency.
Let's go to Marlon, who says, wouldn't bringing in Davante Adams mean we're closer to signing Aaron Rodgers than anything?
No, I don't think so. I think they are separate commodities. Davante is probably going to want to go with Aaron Rodgers, but at the same time, Davante Adams wants to win a Super Bowl. He's looking to win a Super Bowl, and he thought the Jets were going to win a Super Bowl. They didn't, but he thought that they were going to. Now he's probably going to consider that just as highly as playing with Aaron. So the Steelers are still not very high on Aaron Rodgers or acquiring Aaron Rodgers. He's probably on the list, but he's not very high on the list. Davante, I think, is probably somewhat high on that list, but they are not a package for the Steelers.
Let's go to Broderick, who says Mikey Hilton was released earlier. How likely is he to return to the city of Pittsburgh?
I'll tell you this for starters. Mike Hilton was my favorite person in the locker room ever when he was in Pittsburgh. He was awesome. I don't think he's super likely to come back to Pittsburgh. He's 31 years old. He's probably going to get an okay contract. I think that they'll go younger. Nate Hobbs does make a lot of sense to me. Maybe they'll call Mike Hilton. Maybe they'll have those conversations if they can't get a guy like Nate Hobbs or somebody else to fill that role, and they'll look for an older veteran in Mike Hilton who knows how to do this, he's been in Beanie Bishop's shoes. He was the undrafted guy who came into Pittsburgh and, is now 8 years into the league and has made a pretty good amount of money and has a lot of career starts. So I wouldn't rule it out, but I don't think he's first or maybe even second on the Steelers list.
Marlon's referencing our conversation of Beanie Bishop and Nate Hobbs, which is, doesn't trying to plug everything with vets continue to stall the growth of younger players?
Yes, but I don't think Beanie Bishop is viewed right now as a younger guy that they believe is going to turn into a long-term starter. That could change, but I don't think that's how they view him right now. And like we said, Nate Hobbs and Beanie Bishop are the same age. You got the same amount of development. The only difference is Nate Hobbs been starting in the NFL for 3 years, I believe, and Beanie Bishop is 1 year in as an undrafted guy.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, hey, Nick and Noah, been between Chase Claypool and Devin Bush, who is the biggest waste of potential? I personally think Claypool is my answer because during his rookie year, he was a beast.
So I'll say this. Chase looked phenomenal. Devin Bush's upside was way higher. Like Devin Bush was everything that you were supposed to get at pick 10, blew his knee out. And we all know what happened after that one. But if he never blows his knee out, I think Devin Bush, off the field interview, weird cat video stuff aside, is a very, very good linebacker in the NFL. I don't think he really had it in him, just like Chase. Like, I think both of them, football was almost like a side thing. It was like, oh, okay, cool, I did this, but it is what, I'm here, I made it here. That was awesome. And they had nothing to look forward to after that. I think that neck and neck, but I think Devin Bush, he was good coming out of Michigan. He was undersized, but he had everything going for him, and I thought he could have been crazy if he never blew his knee out.
Let's go to Casey, who says, do the Steelers look at quarterback as early as round 2 this year? Ewers looks like a very natural thrower of the ball, and Dart impressed at the combine. If we don't get Fields, what are your thoughts on these guys' potential?
I don't think that a rookie would start for the Steelers this season. So with the Fields thing, like I think either way, it'll be a veteran no matter what. And I do expect it to be Justin Fields. So when I look at Ewers, when I look at Jackson Dart, I look at it simply as, maybe depending on who's off the board. If Jackson Dart falls to them in the second round, they'd probably consider him. I do. I think Quinn Ewers impressed a lot during the NFL Combine, and they, along with a lot of teams, would be interested in him, but he might be a reach in the second round. It just kind of depends. It also depends on how many running backs are still there, how many wide receivers are still there, how many defensive tackles are still there. If guys like Quinshon Judkins or Trey Henderson or Caleb Johnson are still on the board, I don't think the Steelers are looking at a quarterback just yet. It's going to depend on who's there, but Jackson Dart in the second round, I mean, you'd have to have that conversation at least and consider the move.
Let's go to Philip, who says, do you see Jaylen Warren as a long-term solution if he has a breakout year next year as the lead back, or is he just a short-term solution? Seemed to me the Steelers' run game looked better when he was running the ball.
I think Jaylen Warren can be a guy for the Steelers for the next couple of years. Like, I do. He's 26 years old. He's still got at least another 4 years in him before you start to worry about him being a running back. I think he could be. I don't think he's going to be the starter for all of those years, but I do think he could come into Pittsburgh this season, be the guy, have a guy behind him, and then those are the two that the Steelers lean on for the next X amount of years. Like, I think that is a possibility. At the same time, it's going to come down to money. Is he ever going to be super expensive? Because if he is super expensive, I mean, Saquon Barkley just got $20 million a year, which means that at some point, other running backs are going to make a lot of money. Najee Harris's eyeballs just blew up with dollar signs and said, this is going to be a great offseason. I think at some point, Jaylen could be in that same boat. If he is in that same boat, the Steelers are not going to retain him. But if he's cheap, if he's constantly cheap, him and another guy, I think, make a lot of sense for the Steelers.
Let's go to Renee, who says, hey, Noah and Nick, hypothetical outcome here. They sign Fields and Darius Slayton. They bring in Charvarius Ward and Bobby Brown in free agency. Would you be satisfied with that move?
I think I would. I think that'd be pretty good, actually. That'd be a good, decent haul that probably costs a good bit of money, but fills a lot of needs. And I think that it works out really well. I mean, I think this is we get a lot of these. Some of them aren't very realistic. This one's actually kind of realistic. Like, I think this could be a solution for the Steelers with really all four of these guys, and you'd still have money to spare, you'd have to say. Go into the draft and get a running back. And I mean, it doesn't change your plans at all. You could still go Ibuka, you could still go a defensive tackle, you could still go quarterback in the second round. Like, all that can stay the same. I think this works. I kind of like this for.
Let's jump to Logan, who says, if the Jets or someone else offer the Steelers for Fields, how much money do they end up sending his way? And at what point does the money get too big that the Steelers bow out on trying to bring him back?
I'd say anything over $23 million a year is where the Steelers say, okay, I'm done. This isn't worth it anymore. I don't think the Steelers are going to let Justin Fields get into free agency. I still feel that way. I still feel that Justin Fields is going to sign with the Steelers before next Wednesday, or I guess Monday is the legal tampering period. So before Monday, what that's going to come down to, I don't know. What that number is going to be, I don't know. They are taking it down to the wire, but they're negotiating. And honestly, every team is still negotiating. Like, people are going to say, I can't believe the Steelers haven't signed Justin Fields yet. Agreed. But the Vikings still haven't signed Sam Darnold. The New Orleans Saints still have no idea what they're doing with Derek Carr. Aaron Rodgers just got released. You got guys like Russell Wilson who are still out there that, I mean, all these guys could have rumors surrounding them. Nothing's happened. It took Matthew Stafford being almost traded to the Giants to re-sign with the Rams. So teams are taking their time with the quarterback market. I still think it's going to be Fields before Monday.
Let's go to Adam, who says, are the Steelers interested in Higgins from Iowa State?
Yeah, they actually, no, they met with his running mate that I'm not going to remember his name. They set a pre-draft visit with him for probably the next week or so after free agency. They are interested in a number of wide receivers. I'm curious to see if they go to Iowa State. They've been to Iowa State before for pro days. If they do, I mean, Jaden Higgins he's a good receiver. He is a good mid-round receiver. He's got a lot of upside. He's got good size and speed. I thought he looked good at the NFL Combine. Spoke well during his interviews. I think that's a name that the Steelers could have some interest in. Do they go to Iowa State's pro day? I think that'll be pretty, telling in this case to see how clear and how maybe high that interest actually is.
That other wide receiver out of Iowa State is Jalen Noel.
Jalen Noel, not as complicated of a name as I thought it was going to be.
Let's go over to Christopher, who says, are the Steelers not concerned with Walter Nolan's potential character issues? Not like we need any more character concerns in that locker room.
To be honest with you, I don't know the character concerns, if there are character concerns about Walter Nolan. I may have missed this, and I will be very open that maybe I did miss this, but I'm not aware of them. A quick Google search give you anything?
I mean, Google AI said there's questions about his attitude and inconsistent effort, but of course they don't link where it's from.
they just said, you want to hear this? We got you. He does have character concerns. You could probably type in Noah Strackbine character concerns. This guy would be like, this guy sucks.
Well, that's coming up. Yeah, because I wrote that.
Thanks. Appreciate it. I don't know about any Walter Nolan character concerns, but I am very open to finding out about them. And I could be very wrong here. Obviously, that plays a role. I think Kenneth Grant right now is like my guy for the Steelers out of Michigan. I think he fits perfectly for what they're looking for. I wouldn't be surprised if they have him as they're like, we are hoping he gets to 21 name on that big board.
Let's go to Duran, who says, have you guys heard anything about Dan Moore and re-signing him, or is it a shoo-in that he's going to be let go?
Yeah, he's going to be let go. He's going to go elsewhere. I don't think Dan Moore returns to the Steelers. Even as a swing tackle, I don't think that he returns to the Steelers. Broderick Jones is going to be the left tackle. Omar Khan made that very clear. Troy Fautana is going to be the right tackle. They all knew that. Dan Moore is going to go elsewhere. Shout out Dan Moore, man. He was the best, nicest human being on the planet. I mean, a guy that you should be. I understand the Steelers fans weren't very pleased with him, but like, you root for Dan Moore because he's a good enough dude that he deserves to be rooted for.
I kept looking through for Walter Nolan character concerns. The only thing that came up is people are concerned that he didn't participate in combine drills. So I think that's a little bit
thing.
Yeah, that's a little different.
Yeah. From what I've been told, that's a medical thing.
Let's go to Jeffrey, who says, how do you see Herbig working out long-term? Highsmith is under contract until 2027 with cap hits around $20 million, and Watt will probably be re-signed this summer. Is Herbig going to walk after the 2026 season?
No, I mean, I think the door is still wide open for any scenario there. I think if Herbig is starter worthy, worth a massive contract, the Steelers could move on from Alex Highsmith, could trade him, could figure that out if need be. If Herbig is very comfortable being the 3, which I also think is a possibility, like to re-sign Nick Herbig, on a cheaper deal, and because he hasn't been a starter, and then the year after that, Alex Highsmith leaves. I think it's way too early for all of this, but it is like, if I had to guess, Nick Herbig's not going to be somebody that the Steelers let walk in 2026 without making an effort to keep him around.
Let's go to Noah, who says, what do you guys think about Hendon Hooker? I think he'd be a good option if we don't end up with Justin Fields.
I'm not super against Hendon Hooker. I think in a bad quarterback year, sure, take a flyer on the guy, but I don't think Hendon Hooker is a starter in the NFL. I also don't think that Detroit really even looks at him as a backup. So I think there's concerns there about his ability to process the field and that kind of stuff. You got to, like, that was all question marks coming out of Tennessee. So the fact that they went out and got Teddy Bridgewater because they didn't really trust Hendon Hooker in the playoffs, I mean, that speaks volumes. So I look at, again, take a flyer on anybody this offseason. I'm fine with it, but I don't know if I'd be giving up much for Hendon Hooker.
Travis really wants you to answer this question, so I need you to lock in for me, Noah. Pickens versus Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson all day. I mean, that's an easy answer. He was a higher draft pick. He's got a higher ceiling. Garrett Wilson's the guy. I think Garrett Wilson comes with much less distractions, because if distractions aren't getting out, and like this, New York doesn't have a door to hide behind. There's nothing there. Woody Johnson would have told the media himself, or his 15-year-old son would have been like, guys, Garrett Wilson's causing issues, and we all need to be aware that Garrett Wilson's causing issues. So Garrett Wilson, I think he's got so much upside. I think he's a very good wide receiver. I think I would love to see him with a good quarterback in Pittsburgh. It'd be awesome. Would it happen? Probably not, but I'd go Garrett Wilson in this versus here.
Now let's finish it off with a start bench cut from Sam.
Beautiful.
Start bench cut: GP's Browns catch, Odell's catch, or Santonio Holmes catch in the Super Bowl.
Okay, cool. I'm not biased here. Okay, I'm not biased. I'm being totally straightforward. Okay, this is unbiased opinion by Noah Strackbein. George Pickens' catch against the Browns is what I'm starting. That thing was unbelievable. The guy was literally flat. He was parallel to the ground, being tackled out of bounds on the sideline. Caught the ball one-handed. I like the Odell Beckham catch. I do. I really, 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 really do. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's a little bit overhyped. Okay. I think it was great. I think it was cool. I think it made good t-shirts. I think since then, wide receivers have done that a billion times. George Pickens' catch was, again, a parallel to the ground. My hand, for those of you listening, I'm saying 2 inches max from the turf. That's where he was. One-handed grab, falling out of bounds, gets your feet. That's with a guy on you. That does not happen. I'm benching. This is the controversial one. I'm benching Santonio Holmes' Super Bowl catch, because just the play in general was, if we're going straight catch, it's Odell Beckham. Okay. But if we're going play in general, the throw was unbelievable. I mean, I'm staring at it right now, and that's just unreal. That's not, the whole play itself. If we're going straight catch, I'd go Odell's. If we're going play as a whole, I'm going Santonio Holmes, and then Odell's or Santonio Holmes, however you want to judge it, is gone. But GP stands tall in this group, and I'm confident in that.
To me, it all counts. I mean, situation, location, where you're at, who's on you, it all counts towards this. Santonio Holmes is starting. It's the last play of the Super Bowl. I understand it is a tremendous throw, but he's in double coverage there, and he makes the catch with literally no margin for error to win the Super Bowl. I agree with you that if GP's catch was in the end zone, it would be much more comparable to Odell, but Odell did it in the end zone. I think that's why he gets the leg up. Plus, he did it with 3 fingers. I think you have to give him a little bit more credit too, considering he did it with 3 fingers.
Yeah, he did do it with 3 fingers. That is true. That is true. Look, I'm not taking anything. These are all phenomenal catches.
They're all great.
At the end of the day, they're up there with, you could watch these on highlight reels all day. And Santonio Holmes being a start, I'm all about it. No issues there.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Check out, or thank you to all of our members. If you'd like to become a member and call into our AST call-in show every single Wednesday, make sure to do that in the tab on our YouTube page or the link in the description below. We will have that call-in show tomorrow. Super excited for it. So if you guys have the questions, leave them in the voicemail. I'll answer them tomorrow morning. With that said, go get some sunshine because it's a good one here in the Berg. Enjoy it. We'll be back tomorrow. Peace.